Hi, another video. Start off by asking myself a question. Do I think what I want to happen collectively will happen? Now, the question makes sense if you've watched my other videos, read my other papers. The answer is no. But I mean, the establishment, state superstructure, are not happy either. And I'll explain why. I explain why no for me to answer the question, and it's my ideas of where I want it to go and not the trend. The trend seems to be, and I'll explain why, I won't just make it a statement without backing it up. The trend seems to be to pissing the state establishment off rather than seeing through them completely. Thus, all of the following outstanding 10 out of 10 examples of pissing the state establishment off are Catalonia, Trump, Greece, Brexit, Germans killing off their major parties, French killing off their major parties, Australia general elections and government changes every other year. Now that's 7 examples in the last 7 odd years. With repercussions continuing in some of those places. For example, America's not just got over Trump. I mean, the culture war there is continuing. I doubt Catalonia, Spain's settled down too much. And obviously the French are in this process of what the establishment would consider extreme parties growing in strength. Challenging Macron. Now, don't want to get into all that stuff, but it shows that while I don't get what I want, the establishment are constantly being irritated, I think, without losing power. The state superstructure is always there and it can survive these things. I do think Trump's aim was to absolutely smash state superstructure as we know it, but replacing it with himself. So, in other words, not smash the state superstructure really. And also for a civil war, which would have led to at least a couple of million Americans being killed. Anyway, so I won't get what I want, I don't think, and I think that is fair to say. Obviously, I hope against the odds I do. We will come to what that would require. But before we come to what that would require, a refresh of why it's necessary. Now, a question to myself is, how psychologically warped are the megaphone propagandists? Now, some of them, a lot of them, would pass psychoanalysts' individual test, of health, and I'll explain. It's collectively warped. Individually, these propagandists see it as normal, but a little thinking about it shines a light on how warped it is. That megaphone propagandists exist in the first place and have a divide and rule science going for them, using labels to take away the minds of millions of people, and while those millions of people think their independence of mind is still there. It's Orwellian. Now, do remember that our liberal democracy establishments have always claimed that the Nazis at Nuremberg in the trial, as individuals, were normal people who weren't psychologically ill. The psychoanalysts would have given them a clean bill of health. So, our politicians who shut their mind off to their propaganda admit that propagandists, who they must think are other propagandists, actually can become across as quite normal, healthy people, even if they're responsible for the Holocaust, which kills millions of people by throwing them in gas chambers. So it's not just... So this is actually something that me and British propagandists could agree on, that this does happen, whereby people doing wrong are nevertheless good people and healthy people in their own individual lives, while collectively they're absolutely vile. And I think this is vile, by the way, what we're doing. Just because we're not throwing people in gas chambers doesn't mean to say that it's okay to destroy individual minds of millions of people and make out that they're not. Right, so the next question I ask myself is, so how do these British, American, Australian, whatever, how do these propagandists not see through themselves? I mean, isn't it obvious, I say? Megaphones for a clique, and then free speech for the rest of us that fails to reach 20 people. You know what I mean? Some people, they can reach millions through TV and news media. We get to reach no one, and if we did reach millions, they would want us killed or deported or ganked. Now the answer is they normalise it in their heads, totally normalise it, so there is no problem for them. If I say this stuff to people who are not clique, they instantly agree with me. They think, oh yeah, that is ridiculous. They're power mad and they're corrupt, and I can see what you mean. They can reach millions through billionaire-owned news media, and while we've got like we can reach maybe as our best friend sort of attitude. But if you say that to the propagandists themselves, they'll smirk. They'll dismiss it as if there's something wrong with you for thinking that it's not okay for them to have this power inequality. It sounds crazy to us. That's because they have normalised extreme power inequality. They've totally normalised it. It's correct that they should be able to reach the whole world, while you can't reach anyone. And it's correct that if you could reach millions of people, that you should be shut up. They say they believe in free speech. What they mean is, we believe in free speech as long as you can't influence anyone, while we can influence everyone. And then that little bit of conflict in society that goes out of control at times, they pretend that that proves that we've all got perfect free speech, when it's the last thing we want. It's insane. That's their free speech. That's what they want. They want that conflict in society to a certain extent, in order so they can preserve their free speech. Now, I put the next question to myself is, but Joe Bloggs would do this too. He would join in this establishment game if he attained their level of power. So Joe Bloggs, as I said, agrees with me when I say this stuff, but if he attained their power, he would then become like them and disagree with me. Exactly. He would normalise it in his heads. This is because the elite propagandists are not genetically different to us or something. They could have been us. We could have been them. It doesn't make it right though. A megaphone propagandist clique is Orwellian and wrong because it distorts the minds of millions of people. There must be a principle of equal voice. Distorting the minds of millions of people has been normalised for the clique. Indeed, it's provable with a peer-reviewed Fox CNN study that is easily scientifically replicable. That's the one where they showed that they have this divide rule. This is why I said conflicts in their interest to a certain extent. they have this divide and rule, whereas Fox News is saying this, CNN's saying this, and that division that they need for their power, it's required, because without it, what have they got without all the labels? What have they got? What have they got without all the narrative? What have they got without all the conservative this, socialist this, liberal this, CNN scum? What have they got without all of this conflict? They've got nothing. They've got nothing. They've got no fuel. They need some of it. What Trump was doing though was pouring petrol on here, and he's going to go too far. We're going to get a civil war. Well, anyway, getting back to the Fox CNN study, this proves the divide and rule. There's Fox News viewers want to watch CNN for a month, and then suddenly at the end of the month, we find, guess what? They're more liberal than they were before. Much more liberal. Much more critical of Trump. Very critical of Trump. Not Trumpists anymore. So they can control this. And like I say, Trump just took it too far for the establishment. This so-called liberal democracy, it's just social control with nice fuzzy buzzword names that sound more candy floss and nice, like liberal democracy. So the Orwellian propagandists possess a science of power and control, a science of using labels to divide and rule, to brainwash. It's a total ego psychology. It's an abuse of so-called intelligence. I think it's successful for them. But it's intelligent, definitely intelligent, but it's also shameful for them. And I said definitely intelligent, but for me, health, using it correctly for health, that's what is intelligent. But they don't do that. So it just depends on your definition of intelligence. Now, the way the Nazis killed the Jews, in one sense, was intelligent because they made it very effective. In another view of intelligence, it was totally thick as two short planks and evil. So it's both. So when the masses, this is the next question, when the masses piss them off, you know, with Catalonia, Greece, Brexit, Trump, destroying the main parties in France, Germany, Australia, when the masses piss them off, are the masses seeing things a bit like I do? That's the next question. The answer is yes, but they apply the wrong answer. So yes, but then they react wrong. What's happening there is ego power begets ego power. They're responding to ego with ego. They're responding to power with power. They're giving them a little bloody nose, or bad bloody nose, and a black eye, but they're not giving them a knockout blow. The establishment is injured, it's hurt, it's irritated, but it continues on, it sustains, it thrives, it survives. The establishment can survive these things. Next question to myself. Right. Let's say that the people started behaving as I want. Now, what would this require? What would it require for what I want to happen? Well, think of the attention and focus. The attention and focus to see through the establishment, the state superstructure on a mass scale. The attention and focus would have to not be on, the off switch happens here, not on general elections, soap opera of politics, national news media, TV, newspapers, military and wars. The attention would have to be off all of that. And the attention would have to be onto something else instead. something else that's decentralised massively. I always say it's not for me to say what that something should be, and I still say that now. I always think people want examples. Well, I don't know, your best friend's mental health, some family relations mental health, citizen science, but please, I'm not contradicting myself here. It's not for me to say. It's not for me to say at all. What the something else is, it doesn't really matter so much. What matters is what the attention focus is not on, because if the attention stays on that stuff that it shouldn't be on, then we end up in civil war and even world war and even the end of the human species. See, if the attention is switched off all of that, then that state superstructure cannot survive, because it only survives if their propaganda is thriving, if their science of divide and rule, power and control, brainwashing, etc. continues to thrive. There is no doubt about it in my mind. What we call liberal democracy, etc., is just social control. That's all it is. It's absurd to think that because you can vote in an election that you're empowered. Ridiculous. I see through them with ease. Now, question to myself. Yet you don't claim to be doing good in any way. I don't claim to be doing good in any way. Question mark. And my answer to that is, my perspective is one of delating the bad. The normalised at the top, so it doesn't feel bad to themselves. But millions of people who want to piss them off, want to piss the bad off, well, they do think it's bad. And it's not just me thinking that's what the common Joe Blogs person thinks. Studies show that British people think the top is completely corrupt. It's really odd to me that we live in a society that literally perceives itself as corrupt at the top, yet it sustains and thrives. Now I explain why that is though. Because they have a science of social control, a science of propaganda, a science of how to manipulate the public and to thrive. And I get the gist of it without rating it as moral. It's immoral. Now, seeing through the bad doesn't make me good. I just think it's rational, logical and sane. I've seen through the obvious distortion. The propagandists use methods for power and control, labels to divide and rule and brainwash. You don't have to be anywhere near a saint to oppose that stupidity. Next question to myself. But if the trend of pissing the establishment off continues, then surely something's got to give in the end. I answer, well, yes, but it's the same old story potentially. I mean, if you looked at the US, you had Obama, and then, you know, as a puppet for the state superstructure in the US, he wasn't willing to upset the establishment or the state superstructure in any substantial way. And merely symbolic for black people, black African Americans, as being the first black African American president, but he wasn't willing to upset the state superstructure. Now that led to probably a few million Democrats, maybe more than a few million Democrat voters not going to the polls, etc. And then because they haven't got enough there to motivate them to do so, Trump sneaks. People say it was appalling, horrible. So then we go back to the ultra boring Joe Biden. Then people get disgruntled that because it's, you know what I mean. And in France this is going on now. Now the French do have an historical violent tendency that sometimes you think might be something that's got to give in the end. And they've destroyed their main parties. They get Macron, who's ultra establishment, so they're thinking, then the establishment thinks French public are getting extreme, starting to give Le Pen and the equivalent on the far left a good push up to maybe become French president. So then the extremists from the establishment's view get in, and then it goes back to a map. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm just seeing through all of that nonsense. So, oh yeah, maybe in France they won't see through. They'll be the establishment's frustrating us, so now we're over frustrated and we're going to spill out into the streets and start having a bit of a war with them. It was the French in 1960 who come the closest ever to toppling the state superstructure through a mixture of non-violent and violent means. It would be it wouldn't be nice. It wouldn't be nice at all. But basically my answer is that in general I think the pissing off the state is the trend. Not my answer. Yeah, that's what I think. Power begets power. So you're power tripping over us, we're going to power trip over you. I think that's the trend. And I gave the reasons why in the first answer. Catalonia, Greece, Brexit, Trump, Australia, Germany, France. There's 7 examples that come to my mind. Assuming that was all 7 I just said. I might have forgot one, or I don't know. Yeah, that's what I think the trend is at the moment. But I did also answer what would have to happen for it to go my way, which is about the attention and focus. So I think it's been a useful video. And that's it for now.